What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be discussing a topic that I believe is both quite interesting but also incredibly important for the future of Destiny, and that is the topic of old Year 1 legendary weapons that have been made unattainable in Destiny and why it is essential that they be brought back in the Age of Triumph. So in this video, we're going to discuss what exactly I mean by unattainable Year 1 legendaries, why they are so important for Destiny, and all of the benefits the game would receive if they were added back, and how Bungie can achieve this opportunity. And so guys, if you enjoy what we're talking about today, and if you agree with what I'm saying, please remember to support the video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. It's a very simple thing to do, but it really does help me out, and you could be literally changing the course of Destiny. Now, to some of you, that may sound like a little bit much, but I am incredibly passionate about this issue and what it can do for Destiny, and I hope by the end of the video you feel the same way. So let's get started by discussing what do I mean by these unattainable Year 1 legendaries. Because I think a lot of people aren't going to know about them because a lot of people never experienced Year 1. Destiny made more money with the launch of the Rise of Iron than it did with its initial content release with the original Destiny vanilla game. And that's because over the years, Destiny has built quite the audience. Many people picked up Destiny with the launch of the Taken King, and many more people picked up Destiny with the launch of the Rise of Iron. It's very attractive for players entering into this franchise to get the game when it comes with a bundle, including all of the expansions. But all of the people who did do that are going to miss out on a vast amount of Destiny's loot table. Now that is because a large amount of weapons were available in the original Destiny release. That was increased even more so by the release of the Dark Below expansion, and then yet again with the release of the House of Wolves expansion. And yet, all of those weapons added in essentially 3 content offerings were scrapped for an entirely new gun system introduced with the large Taken King expansion. This expansion kind of reworked the loot system, adding in the foundries, Suros, Haka, and Omelon that we now know, but it did away with all of the weapons that previously came with it, or at least almost all of them. So if you're watching this video and you wanted to acquire any of those older weapons, you simply cannot, with the exception of some of the older weapons that have been purposely updated. The Matador 64 is an example of a Year 1 weapon that has been updated into the current light level system, as was the LDR, the Longbow Synthesis, the Badger CCL, and other certain weapons have been updated. However, the vast majority of these older weapons remain unattainable, with the slight exception of doing the old level 28 Prison of Elders can have the extremely rare chance to drop old House of Wolves loot. But that is extremely rare and probably not something a lot of people are going to spend time in. A great visual and literal example of what I'm talking about is this Crusader 1 Scout Rifle. What you're seeing right now is actually one of the rarest pieces of loot in the entire game. And it simply is that way because it's one of the original Destiny legendary weapons. It came with the vanilla release of the game. No expansions added this gun. And again, just because of that principle, it's incredibly rare. It happened to be my first legendary primary weapon, and I held on to it simply because of sentimental reasons. I just didn't want to delete it. It went through hell in terms of vault space issues, but it still made it out the other way. The important part of this Crusader and all of the other weapons we're talking about here is that they're literally in the game. You're seeing the Crusader right now. You'll see me put the Crusader on, take it out, and it functions perfectly within the game space. I'm shooting enemies, I'm reloading this gun, I'm using this gun. Everything about this gun, its textures, how it looks, how it reloads, how it acts, how it sounds, is all in the game. Again, I'm using this weapon in front of your eyes. I can take this into the Crucible if I wanted to. I can take this into older story missions and still use it. But for whatever reason, I can't actually get another one. If I delete this Crusader, the only way I can get it back is by deleting every single expansion on my Destiny game and going back to just the vanilla version, or maybe even having to buy the vanilla version again and just play that version to get this weapon, which is pretty ridiculous and obviously something that people just, for the most part, are not going to do. And now that we've explained what these weapons are, let's now discuss why should we bring them back. Quite frankly, Destiny is a loot-based game. The reason you do the things that you do in Destiny is to acquire loot. The reason people want to go 9-0 in Trials of Osiris is to unlock the chest on Mercury. The reason you play Iron Banner is to get the Iron Banner loot. The reason you do the raids is to get the raid loot, right? It's all connected to loot. Loot is the driving factor behind why most people are playing the game. Now, of course, some people are just playing it for fun. Some people have gotten all the loot in the raids and are just doing it simply for the reason of fun. But the vast majority of people are trying to get that next god roll, that next good piece of loot to help improve their performance in other aspects of the game. Now, one of the absolute necessities of a loot-based game is that it has variety. If Destiny had 3 weapons, one to start out with, one you got for beating the story missions, and one you got from beating the raid, not many people would be playing this game. Variety in the loot system, and the fact that you have all of these different primary weapons, and then you have variety within categories. You have different auto rifles, and then you have different archetypes of auto rifles, and then you have differences within that same auto rifle archetype. That is kind of the spice of life in Destiny. The variety is one of the key selling points. Finally adding these old legendary Year 1 weapons back into the game would astronomically increase Destiny's variety and diversity in terms of its weaponry. In fact, let's go over a frankly painful example. Painful in that it shows just how much this would help and how needed it actually is. Because let's imagine you wanted to use a high damage pulse rifle. I've actually made a video on how good these pulse rifles are in the current meta. They're really, really good. They can kill in 2 bursts in the Crucible if you hit your shots. So, if you wanted to use one of these weapons, if you wanted to go out and get one of these weapons, you have 2 choices right now in this damage archetype. You can get the spare change 0.25 from the Crucible, or you can get the Parthian shot as a Vanguard drop. That's it. Literally 2 options if you want a weapon within this damage archetype. However, if Bungie did add back the old Year 1 legendary weapons, this damage archetype would increase drastically. You would get the 3 little words, an old Crucible pulse rifle. You would also get the Fair and Square, another old Crucible weapon. You'd get the Super Pox Volo, an old Vanguard weapon. And you'd get the Messenger, an old, in fact, the first Trials of Osiris weapon. So, you would get 4 more legendary pulse rifles in this highest damage category. That would literally triple the diversity within this damage archetype. How insane is that? Like, how insane, how beneficial for Destiny would that be, adding this much diversity into this damage archetype? If you're someone watching this video and you like using those high damage pulse rifles, if you have a good spare change, how awesome would it be that you now have 4 more choices for weapons to utilize? And even though these weapons are all in the same damage archetype, doing the same damage and having the same rate of fire, they all have small differences. They all have different ranges, different stabilities, different reloads, different sights, different perks they can spawn with, different aim assists, different recoil patterns. Think about the massive debate raging right now between the Palindrome hand cannon versus the Isoluna versus the Imago Loop versus the Devil You Know. Like, all of those hand cannons all are in the same damage archetype, but there's a huge debate within the PvP crowd. You know, again, Isoluna versus Palindrome. Which one is better? They have slight differences in recoil pattern and range and stability, all this stuff, that people swear by one or the other. People have hugely different opinions based on these small differences. So that's how beneficial it can be in the game. It literally triples the diversity of the high damage pulse rifles, and that is just one damage archetype of just one gun type in the game. There are so many more. There are dozens more legendary weapons that have been ignored, that are in the game right now. All of the hard part of the development process in adding these weapons, adding their appearance, their reload animation, all that stuff is done. They're in the game. They're just inaccessible and unavailable to upgrade. Another great example is with the Mida archetype for scout rifles. The scout rifles that kill in 4 shots but shoot a little bit faster than normal. This right now includes the Distant Star Iron Banner scout rifle and the Angel's Advocate Vanguard scout rifle. Again, if you want a weapon within that damage archetype, those are your 2 choices. But the scout rifles you're missing out on include the High Road Soldier, the 1-1 Synthesate, and the Crypt Dweller SR1. 3 more legendary weapons, more than doubling the diversity in this damage archetype by just updating the weapons that are already in the game. Again, that just blows my mind how beneficial this would be if Bungie actually did finally update these old weapons. And so that should really illustrate why Bungie should do this. It would unbelievably increase the diversity of gunplay within Destiny. The amount of new options you would have for all of your favorite gun categories would increase so dramatically. Again, we went over 2 examples. One of them tripled in diversity and the other one more than doubled in diversity. And there would be an increase in diversity in every single damage archetype, in every single category of weapon. You would have more choice if the old legendaries were added back into the game. So the question now remains, how can Bungie do this? Well, to be quite honest, it's pretty simple. They could, at a baseline level, just add all of these weapons, make them infusible first, of course, and then add them into engrams. Just add all of these weapons into engrams. You would literally increase the amount of loot you can get from a legendary engram by like 1,000%. Which would be bloody awesome. Like, how crazy would that be? How much longer would you play Destiny for if you could get so many new weapons throughout engrams? And the best part is that you earn engrams from doing pretty much everything. So every piece of content, doing the raid, for example, you get a pretty damn good chance to get legendaries out of those raid chests in the Wrath of the Machine. Doing strikes, doing Prison of Elders, doing whatever you want to do, you get engrams. That's how easy it would be. Now, Bungie could take the extra step, go the extra mile, and add some of these weapons to certain activities. For example, add, the fair and square to Crucible again, add something else to one of the salesmen, one of the Vanguard quartermasters or something like that. They could definitely make things harder on themselves, but frankly, they don't even need to. Simply making these weapons acquirable would be good enough. Now that would be the preferable solution, making these weapons infusible and then just adding them back into the loot table. But if, for some reason, Bungie can't be bothered to do that, they can at least make these weapons acquirable. Some of these weapons you literally cannot get, as I've explained, unless you basically uninstall everything. At least make them drop at their current older light levels from the story modes or somewhere, something that will let people farm for them and actually get these weapons, because then at least we could still utilize them in the Crucible. It is ridiculous that these weapons are in the game, that every once in a while you see people using these weapons, but they've not been made available for the vast majority of players. I do not possibly see how dedicating 5 people at Bungie's time one Saturday to update these weapons to just make them infusible is not worth it for the unbelievable benefits that would come from doing this. Now, yes, maybe that was a little bit of an exaggeration. I'm not a developer, and maybe it would take a decent amount of time to go back and make all of these weapons infusible. However, there's no way that the downsides outweigh the benefits. The benefits to the game are astronomical, as we've gone over. The increase to diversity is mind-boggling. And so it is absolutely worth dedicating the time and effort, Bungie, into making these guns infusible and making them acquirable. It will help Destiny so much, because I think it's very important to also say that one of the things I'm sure people are going to comment down below is that, well, Destiny 2 is coming, right? Why do we care about Destiny when Destiny 2 is coming? Why should Bungie dedicate resources to Destiny if Destiny 2 is coming? Now that's a fair point, and that's why I'm not asking them to double the amount of guns in the game right now. I'm just asking them to make the guns that are already in the game more accessible. Like, it's not that hard to do. Again, all the hard development stuff making these guns, they're already in the game's code. The hard stuff has been done. But quite frankly, an even more important point is that for Destiny 2 to succeed, Destiny can't be a failure. This game was sold by Bungie and Activision as a constantly evolving experience where you're always going to have something to do. And so the fact that this game dies every 3 months, maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but you get my point, is not a very good thing. People are not going to be rushing out to pre-order Destiny 2 if they're unhappy with the current state of Destiny. And if people blow through the Age of Triumph, which they may well do if no new substantial weaponry is added, then they are not going to rush and pre-order Destiny 2 at all. So Bungie, do yourselves a favor, do the community a favor, do everyone a favor. Add these weapons back properly into the loot system. The amount of time people are going to spend getting this massive increase to the weaponry in Destiny is just mind-boggling. I will be busy getting these weapons until the day before Destiny 2, basically, if they're actually added back. And that is why Bungie should add the unaccessible Year 1 legendaries back into the loot table. Again, I hope you guys are agreeing with what I'm saying. If you do, it's up to you to make this happen, right? It's up to you to share this video, send it to Bungie, share it with your friends, whatever you want to do. Anything helps in pressuring Bungie to actually do this. Even if they don't do it for whatever reason, even if they don't do it for the Age of Triumph, it can still be done after. Adding these all to engrams would not be that big of a challenge. Bungie could literally dedicate a handful of people to do this over a weekend. They could get it done. It's just a matter of if they're actually going to do it. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this interesting. Now if you want to see more Destiny content, be sure to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want to be notified of new uploads, be sure to press the bell beside subscribe. Now if you actually want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.